Welcome to Charity Therapy, the podcast where we explore the ups and downs of the nonprofit sector and answer your burning questions. I'm your host, Jess Birkin, owner of Birkin Law Office, and I'm excited you're here. Imagine hanging out with me and my super smart, funny nonprofit expert pals. You get to ask them anything about your nitty-gritty nonprofit life and get their wisdom for free. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just strapping on your nonprofit boots, we're here to share stories and remind you you're not alone on this journey. So get ready to join the conversation and bring me the tough questions. I ain't scared. Ready to rock? Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Charity Therapy. Megan, are you ready to pump it up?
I am so ready. That sounded almost like accusatory. Megan.
Megan?
I have not been pumping it up, but I can pump it up now.
We have been singing the jingle from the commercial for, what were they called?
I think it was called Pump It Up.
Was it called Pump It Up? So there's this like indoor play places. See, here
we go.
In Minnesota, where it's winter for like 6 months and you can't play outside. They've created indoor play spaces. I don't know if you all have these in the rest of the country, but we have a lot of them. And there's one that's just full of like inflatables, like the bouncy house, bouncy castles, bouncy slides, bouncy tunnels. And it was called Pump It Up.
And they've got a great
And Megan discovered that it still exists.
It does still exist. This all happened before we started recording. So we're just like recapping our pre-recording.
Yeah, we're telling the people what's important in our lives today.
Yes.
And it is pump it up.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you know what is important in a nonprofit life?
What?
Their bylaws. How do you like that transition?
Do people get pumped up about their bylaws?
Let's hope not.
I feel like they don't, but we're going to try and inflate this issue to have more life.
Yep. Let's do that. Let's leave that right there.
It's a lot of hot air in this episode.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So bylaws.
So
bylaws, we talk about them a lot, probably more than the average nonprofit person. But we've heard this so many times from clients that they have some requirement in their bylaws that they just like don't ever follow. Like it is sitting there, it says that they have to do this and they never do.
Legit.
Right?
I have a lot of client meetings with people where I'm like, so this election process, do you do this? It's complicated. No. And then they look ashamed and they say, no, we actually don't follow that at all.
Yep.
It's okay, people. You're not alone.
Yeah. Our listener question gets right into that issue today. So before we jump in, like, Jess, give us the 101 here. Are nonprofits required to follow everything in their bylaws?
I mean, so technically, yes. Right? I mean, technically, yes.
Yeah. What happens if they don't?
You're required, well, not a lot.
Full of hot air.
Yep. It's a lot of hot air. Don't get too pumped up about it if you're not following your bylaws. No, I mean, to be in all seriousness, you're supposed to follow your bylaws. Certain organizations, they have more external accountability about following their bylaws because maybe they have voting members who are expecting things to be done a certain way. And that's what the bylaws say to do. So when you deviate from that, your members may let you know very loudly that you are not following your bylaws. Other organizations, you know, if you're not paying attention, you could not be following your bylaws. And like, it's not like the nonprofit police are going to pop out of a garbage can in an alley and arrest you. So you are supposed to follow them. You're also supposed to follow state laws for nonprofits and the IRS requirements for nonprofits. So, you know, to the extent that your bylaws contain some of those, you're supposed to follow them.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's dive right into a situation where the bylaws are not being followed. I've got a listener question for you, Jess. So
if we had fancier editing, we would have dropped in the Pump It Up jingle song, and now we would have cued like a deflating sound. Like, yeah.
Oh, Lord. Yes. Okay. Ready. Let's do this. The president of our nonprofit died last June, right around the date scheduled for our big election. Despite the bylaws requirements, the election was not held. The vice president assumed the duties of the president and has said that the new elections won't be held until 2025. For listeners in the future, it's currently 2023. The action by the assumed president is clearly in violation of the 501c3 regulations. What should we do?
All right. So, first of all, I just want the listeners to know that the assumed president is in quotation marks.
Yeah, I'm hoping you heard that in my voice. Assumed president.
We know that the assumed president is clearly in violation of the 501c3 regulations. This person doesn't know what they're talking about.
And they're salty about it.
But they are clearly upset about what happened, and I frankly don't blame them. What is this? That's terrible. The president died. I can see how that would cause a kerfuffle.
Yep.
I'm a little concerned about why didn't the elections get held? Doesn't seem... We just don't have enough information. I don't know why you wouldn't still have your elections, but whatever, they didn't happen. Then the vice president assumes the duties of the president. Okay, that's fair because pretty much in any vice president description, it says that the VP is going to fill in for the P anytime the president isn't available. And when you're dead, you're not available. That's fine. But the tire screeching sound for me is where the president now unilaterally on his own or her own or their own decided that the new elections would not be conducted for several years. Okay.
Sorry.
That's weird.
I can't stop laughing about the you're not available.
What? Why are you dying?
You're not available when you're
You're
dead.
not available when you're dead.
Woo, okay,
These
sorry.
are just facts, Megan. You're not available when you're dead.
If this was a video podcast, you'd see me like fighting for my life over the last several sentences, trying not to interrupt.
Listen, I'm just saying how it is, okay?
It's true. Okay, continue. Sorry.
But the death of the president does not give the vice president unilateral authority to now dictate election procedures going forward. It's also weird. Like, where are the other officers?
Right. Also, who is this person that's writing in? Like, are they an officer? Are they on the board? Is this somebody else?
Is this a voting member organization and there's an angry member?
Yep.
Because that feels on brand.
That does feel on brand.
To me.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder if this is an organization that elects a president separately. Sometimes voting member associations, especially like trade associations and things like that, they will let the members vote on particular officers. And if those elections are done on sort of like a staggered cycle, it could be that the only officer that was going to be elected was the president. So maybe we are just talking about the election of the president role. I don't know. We don't have enough information.
Yeah.
But is there really a problem? Because there's not a violation of 501c3 regulations. They're just unhappy with how this went. There could have been a violation of state law if this is a voting member organization. The voting members may have rights to call for an election if one wasn't held. Also, I'm certain that their bylaws say something, and they could have called a lawyer to ask for an opinion about what they should do rather than just let the interim president decide that they would just fill the term of the unilateral decision here is where I'm not happy about this.
Yeah. I mean, this, I feel like, is the perfect example of shit happens, right? Like,
yep.
Nonprofits are made of people, and when things get complicated, like someone dying while in office, you might miss elections. That sucks. It's not the end of the world, but it sucks. After that has happened, that's when you have to be like, okay, let's get back to our procedures. Let's figure out what we're supposed to be doing here. You know, it's like, it's not that you should never mess up and have something deviate from the way it's supposed to happen, but it almost sounds to me like they're saying, well, we're just skipping the 2023 elections and instead we'll just wait until 2025. And it's just like, hold on though, that doesn't work.
No, it doesn't work. And that's fine for the vice president to fill in as interim
Yes.
until the election.
Yes.
But there is a process. And this question is very light on facts.
Yes.
So I'm going to say what you should do, but I understand that I actually don't have more context than the original president is unavailable because they are deceased. So I would assume this is probably a voting member association and they probably have a right to vote. I would also recommend that this group should be having a special election and they should call a special election. And then we can see if people would like the vice president to be elected as president instead of just having them usurp the throne, as it were, and then decide by themselves that they get to reign for another 2-3 years. That seems wrong. Without knowing any other facts, that seems wrong. It seems like there should be a special election. A proper election should be called, and this person can run for president.
Yep.
And if they get elected, fantastic. They will no longer be, quote unquote, assumed president. And our question writer needs to accept that reality then and deal with it.
Yeah.
Because it may be the case that everybody else is fine with this person being president. And so you can try and push for the special election, and that does feel like the more proper thing, but also be prepared for the fact that this person may actually just end up getting elected.
Yep. Yeah. Still good to follow the proper procedures. And it should be, correct me if I'm wrong, Jess, in their bylaws how to call a special election, right?
It should.
Yes.
And if it's not, it's probably in your state statute. And if it's not, phone a friend, call someone for legal advice.
Yeah, always. If it is a voting member organization, isn't there a thing where the members can ask for a special election?
Usually, there is a statutory process for the members to call for a meeting or to have someone removed.
Yeah.
That's a whole other drama where, I'm not saying go get the assumed president removed, but I am saying it would be good to encourage the organization to follow its process.
It's unlikely we're in some high drama Game of Thrones situation where the vice president offed the president in order to take over the throne. We're not in that level. Hopefully.
Maybe this person is listening to too much true crime.
Right?
That's a different podcast entirely, where the vice president offs the current president of the nonprofit so they can usurp the role.
All that power you get as a nonprofit president. No money, no veto power, more
I'm
responsibility.
desperately trying to connect this back to Pump It Up, and I just regret that that's where we started. We should have started talking about royalty in Game of Thrones.
I know.
Because
missed opportunity.
This has nothing to do with hot air.
I mean, no, it's cold air. I don't know. That doesn't make sense either.
There's nothing. We can't connect it. We can only just give boring recommendations with this one.
Exactly. On this podcast, we're talking about boring bylaws procedure, not dramatic offing of the president. So this writer-inner can probably relax a little bit, but maybe help their nonprofit follow the proper procedures.
Writer-inner.
Writer-inner.
It's Friday. You can tell it's Friday. Our vocabulary level is way down.
Pump it up. Okay, are you ready for some takeaways?
Yes.
We can put the listeners out of their misery of this Friday episode. Okay, so I have a couple things. First, follow your bylaws. Yes, nothing terrible is going to happen if you don't, most likely, but it's a good practice to have some decent bylaws that you actually follow. And if you're not following your bylaws, you probably need to update them so that they reflect real world practices.
Touché.
In the event that a president or an officer is unavailable because they have died, it is completely normal to have someone like the VP assume those duties until their next election. So that is a acceptable decision, and it's probably written into your bylaws that way. The thing that is a little bit less acceptable is just keeping the position for a full term. So when something like this happens, there's an unexpected vacancy, it's a good idea to call a special election, and you should be able to do that based on things that are written out in your bylaws or your state law.
Or at least a board vote,
right?
Instead of a unilateral decision by one person.
Exactly.
Just saying.
And last but not least, your bylaws are there to help you, so use them. And so are the many attorneys out there who can help you through messy, thorny situations like this where you don't know exactly the right procedure to follow.
Truth. Listen, people, if you have a nonprofit problem that you are pumped up about,
Or pumped down. They're real pumped down.
or it's
Deflated.
deflating you, please be a writer-inner and contact us. We can't do this podcast without your questions. I mean, let's be real. We just can't.
No.
So you're just going to have to send us something. And you should go to charitytherapy.show and fill out that little form and tell us the last time you rented a bouncy house for a fundraiser.
Yes, we want to hear all of those stories. Please tell me the president of your organization got a little bit drunk and went in the bounce castle or something. Like,
Yeah.
I want those stories.
And do not commit crimes to take over the roles of the officers at your nonprofit.
It's not
Last
worth
parting
it, guys.
words of advice.
It's not worth it.
I'm sorry. We really shouldn't kid. It was probably super tragic.
It probably was, yes. We don't know what
probably
happened.
horrible.
Yes.
We're just pumped up on Friday vibes right now.
I think that's about it.
All right. I think we better go
Yeah.
before I get myself in trouble with any more bouncy house cancel jokes. Folks, have a great rest of your day. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for listening.
Bye.